Hey, what's up, everybody? This is MJ, and welcome to the Black Wine Guy Experience. My guest today is the multi-talented Amanda McCrossin. Amanda is a sommelier. She's a media personality and host of Wine Access, their unfiltered podcast. She is also the creator and the host of the Instagram and YouTube channel, and she really is the SOMMVIVANT.
Thank you.
And she was the former wine director at Press, Napa Valley. And when she was there, she worked with the world's largest collection of Napa Valley wines, which is, we're going to get into that. That's crazy. And she's a media personality. She's been featured on Somm TV, Food Network, Wine Enthusiast, Somm Journal, Food and Wine. And that's just to name a few. So
Thank you for only naming a few.
Yeah.
Well, my palms get sweaty when.
Yeah, don't you like when people start? I'm like, who's that? I was like, who's that? Hey, Amanda, welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm excited that you have insisted that we drink wine while doing this.
Oh yeah. Anything you want to add to your bio? I mean,
absolutely not. No.
Oh my God. So yeah, we absolutely drink on the Black Wine Guy Experience because it's an experience, and this is about wine. And you and I connected through Instagram.
Yes.
Yeah, which is really cool.
Very millennial of us.
Yes. Yeah, and you were following me before Black Lives Matter, so it was really cool.
Oh well. I'm glad I didn't like.
Yeah, you weren't on the Black Lives marketing tip.
I'm not part of the PR team that was like, hey, follow these 10 people
exactly,
and get on the train.
Yeah, totally. So thank you for coming, and thank you for bringing the wine. Tell everybody about the wine you brought today.
Yeah, well, this was so I am actually not in Napa Valley at the moment. Obviously, I'm here with you, but I'm also living on the East Coast. So I didn't have my full collection of wines, which made this a very fun experience for me because I don't buy a lot of wine. I
want to be like you when I grow up.
I do. Well, I buy, so I'm a member of a couple wine clubs, and then, anything else that I do buy, I buy Wine Access. And so living on the East Coast, I didn't have any wines to drink out here. So I just went on the Wine Access website and I was like, these all look kind of interesting. I'm going to buy these wines. And they had this Occidental, which we're drinking now. And my first experience with it was about this time last year when I went out to Occidental. Have you ever had this wine?
No, I know that it is Steve Kistler's. It's a Steve Kistler project.
Yeah, it's his follow-up project after he departed Kistler.
Yeah.
And was really, really enamored by Freestone Occidental and really, really far off on the Sonoma coast. And it's much, much cooler there, but it's a very, very cool place. And I went out to visit there with a friend of mine who used to be a sommelier at Alinea. And she set up the whole experience, and I was blown away. You know, you live in California for a period of time, and you're like, I know everything. And I went out there, and I tried these wines, and they got me.
Yeah.
I had a moment with them, and I was like, these are so unique and so different and so special. And from that moment on, I was like, I had this opinion of California Pinot Noirs to an extent, but after tasting this, I was like, I think maybe I missed one or two. So anyway, so I saw that Wine Access had it, and I ordered it, and I had it in my I don't have a cellar there, so I had it in my kitchen pantry and yanked it out and brought it up here because it's been a while since I've had it, and I'm happy to be drinking it with you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
I'd heard about this wine, and Freestone. That's like the Phelps property. Phelps was like one of the first people out in Freestone, right?
Yeah, Phelps does have a vineyard out there. It's an area that is still feels very wild.
Yeah.
It's very close to Sebastopol. If you've ever been to Sebastopol, and that's where my favorite ramen spot is.
Good to know.
We went there after. And it's the best. It's called Ramen Gaijin. If you're ever out there again, you have to go.
Okay.
It's better than any place in New York City. And I lived here looking for the best ramen place in New York City. It doesn't exist in New York. It's in Sebastopol. I threw it down.
I know.
Said it.
She
I
threw down the gauntlet.
Yeah. But yeah, it's very cool. It's very breezy. You've got basically one bluff. Hopefully, I'm not messing this up. You've got basically one bluff blocking those crazy winds that are coming off the Pacific. But this is their Freestone Occidental, and not entry level, but like generic blend. And there's a few single cuvées that they do as well that are delicious. But wow, I mean, these wines are just crazy.
I'm blown because someone said it's not as big as the Kistler's Pinot, but the color on this is amazing though. It's beautiful, and I'm getting really black raspberry fruit and
Yeah, this is a bit of a departure, and we talked about that when Steve sat in on the tasting with us, and as did his daughter Kate, and we talked about that, and I think it was intended to be a departure from Kistler and that that style of wine that they made, and wow, it's not Burgundian, it's not Santa Barbara, it's not Sonoma, it's just like kind of its own thing.
Yeah, that's just good Pinot Noir. That really is.
Yeah, kind of bouncy, but like it's kind of it's kind of like you. It's kind of serious, but it's got like a comedic undertone.
Yeah.
A little stealth, a little something behind the eyes.
Yeah.
Yeah. All meant to be flattering and complimentary. Don't blush.
So tell me, I've read, I've been following you for a while. Great. First of all, I would say, like, no bullshit. Like, I saw your IG and I was like, wow. And I saw your handle. I was like, this chick's got it. Like I think you're like one of the best, if not like content creators. There's a lot of people. I mean, do you consider yourself, I hate this term because I'm a little bit old, influencer? I mean, that's the term, but like I noticed you use the term content creator. Like, talk about like how did the idea for SOMMVIVANT come about?
Ooh, well, let's unpack that. Well, back at you, and thank you very much. The word influencer is, I think, one that kind of makes us all cringe a little bit. Because I think when you think about influencer, like, you're never trying to influence anything.
Right.
And so, by naming yourself that, it sort of implies that that's what the intent is, and that's not really what it is. Right. But it really stemmed from living here in New York City and wanting to get into the wine world and not really having an access point. Mm-hmm. I think for a lot of us, we feel that way. I think for a lot of people who didn't grow up in the wine industry, there's like, how do I get into it? So living in New York and I was an actress. I was, working the scene, doing the things. Yeah,
theater or TV, everything?
All of the above. Okay. Any work I could get. So my background is in musical theater. So I have my degree in musical theater from...
you can sing, huh?
I can sing a little.
We're going to have you back on the show, and it's going to be like a 2-bottler.
I'm going to need a stage with lights.
Well, we're planning on moving up. There's right now you're like in the... Between Two Ferns editions of the Black Wine Guy Experience.
Oh, we are. Well, this is like very flirty in them because I've got palm trees. Yeah. So that's nice.
We'll have to talk that up. So musical theater, cool.
Musical theater. So I have my degree. I have my BA in musical theater, which means nothing, but it was a lot of fun. So I worked the circuit in Philadelphia and then up in New York, and I got into film and TV, one, because it pays better, but also it was something different. Mm-hmm. And I really liked it, and was living in New York City, had a side job at a place called the Core Club, like not too far from here, and got into wine via a sommelier who had left Le Bernardin to come work with us. And he was my access point, even though we had nothing in common. He was French and
He was French.
I know. He was French. That's like it. He was French. Yeah. So I asked him questions, and he was the one that really opened all the doors for me. And I've told this story a few times, but I think he is the one that opened it for me. But also he couldn't show me the way. Mm-hmm. Like, I kind of had to find it for myself. And through that process, I realized that there was no avatar for me to sort of emulate. Like, there wasn't a person that I felt like I connect with in the wine world. And there were, some great female sommeliers and great master sommeliers, but there was just no one that I identified with because you
don't want to be like Jancis.
I love Jan, and I love all of them. I know you love her.
I know, but I mean, she's square, man.
She's pretty square, yeah. And I don't know.
And she's amazing. She's brilliant.
Yeah.
And
maybe that's the thing for me. Yeah. I can't identify with like brilliant women who can write the way that she does.
Listen, I'm not that dumb, but you're obviously a very intelligent woman. But and then there is that whole. Then there's this other set of, in my perception of the female somm who's like is just no makeup, just flat shoot, just
oh yeah, I wasn't wearing a suit or like naturalizer. Right. No, it wasn't happening.
Right.
It was not. No, and like to this day when I was at press, I still really struggled with like the somm uniform. Like, I wouldn't work at a place that had Michelin stars that made me wear a suit because I was like, it's just not who I am.
Yeah.
And So yeah, so I mean, I didn't feel like I could identify with anyone, and then I had this theater and film background, and so I was like, well, what if I started a YouTube channel? I don't know. So I started a YouTube channel in New York, and it was called Unwind with Amanda, and I think I filmed like 2 episodes or 3 episodes or something, and it kind of like fell off because I was in my mid to late 20s, and I was living in New York and wanting to do other things,
Yeah,
and then you get distracted.
Yeah.
It's easier, and then I moved out to California, and I don't know. I felt like it was a new opportunity to showcase not only what I was doing in Napa Valley, but also to sort of pay homage to that person that I really wanted to get back to. And then the third fold of that was I was working at Press, and people were asking me left and right, hey, where should I go wine tasting when it comes to Napa Valley?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have any answers for them. And I was like, there should be a compendium for this. There should be somewhere where someone could go and have some sort of picture image that they could get, that if they were researching Napa Valley and where to go and how to wine taste, that they could just, go to this channel and it would be there. And that's really how it started. It was, it solved a lot of problems for me. It also created a lot of problems in the process because I didn't know how to shoot. I didn't know how to edit. And then all of a sudden I was like this one-woman band. But at the time, I was in love with Casey Neistat and the content that he was producing. Gary Vaynerchuk had already done his thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, if Casey can put out a vlog a day, I can too. Forgetting that Casey has like a very deep background in making films and really great ones at that. And so I basically I copied exactly what he was shooting with. I bought everything. I learned everything on YouTube. And I remember the very first day I started, I went, I filmed, I shot everything. I came home, I edited, and I did that for a full month straight. So I went to like 20 something wineries in a month, shooting, editing, putting out content day after day after day after day. And that's how it started.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
it's exhausting just talking about it.
Yeah. But see, it's also, I think that it's real content. I mean, like, I think a lot of people, I mean, you can do a ton with your phone and you should, like, but there's just a quality to the stuff that you put out that's really phenomenal. And
Thanks.
yeah, no. And so you working at a restaurant in New York, right? Did you go in as a server? I take it, or
I did. I was, a cocktail waitress, or it was a private club, so it was like I had no. I still to this day, I remember this job interview. I was still living in Philadelphia. I had gotten a place to live in New York City, but no job, and so it was like 2 weeks before I was supposed to move up here, and I started hunting Craigslist for jobs, and only one person got back to me. It was the Core Club. I took the Bolt bus up to New York City. The Bolt bus.
$5.
Rest in peace. Oh man. Took the Bolt bus up to New York City.
I gotta pause. That must have been it. I mean, the bus. Yeah, anytime you're on a bus ride from Philly to New York, it's characters.
You know what? I actually loved the Bolt bus.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't Megabus. Megabus was different. That is where the characters lived. But
okay.
Bolt like always seemed to me to be a little bit more of a commuter train.
Gotcha.
So it was like more, okay. I don't know. Maybe I was just in my own bubble, like putting on makeup or something. Yeah. But I got to New York. I got to New York that day, and I went straight to the interview, and another French guy, of course, did the interview, and he gives me this test. And I remember looking at him like, I don't know a damn thing about anything. And one of the questions was, what is your favorite wine? And I had worked this job at another American bistro back home. And this couple went to Napa like all the time. They would always come back and bring wines with them. And I remember they brought in a 2004 Groth Reserve. I was like, wow, this is amazing. And they had given me a taste of it. So on that questionnaire or test that they gave you, he was like, what's your favorite wine? It's 2004 Groth Reserve. And that was like the only answer that I think was even a correct answer on that test. And directly after, I wore a cute little black dress. I was very bubbly and I'm sure very charming for this older Frenchman. And tall heels. And I emailed him after and I was like, I know that I probably don't like fit exactly, knowledge wise, but like I'm smart. I'm a fast learner. Like I'll do what needs to be done. Like, please just give me the job. And he did. So that was like, I went for the job on like a Tuesday. I heard back on Friday that I got the job. And then literally Sunday I moved in. Monday I started.
Wow.
And that was so I started as like a server cocktail waitress at this private club that is still to this day, I think it's the most expensive private club in Manhattan. It's the most elite. So it's $50,000 to join with like annual dues of some crazy amount. And that just gets you in the door. So I got to know some like pretty pretty like important people in the world without really knowing
Yeah, like
what I was doing.
you're in there with like hedge fund guys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so, I'm researching
billionaires.
Goldman Sachs.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my first foray into
Wow.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so then you move from cocktail waitress to
Yeah. How does one make the jump?
So how do you make the jump? So you're at the core club, you're a cute little cocktail waitress.
Yes.
And then what? And then like.
Well, so Arnaud starts. He's the sommelier from Le Bernardin. He started at Core Club, and again, like I'm living in New York, and I'm sucking in all this culture. To me, I always pictured. Do you know the musical Thoroughly Modern Millie, or maybe the movie from like the 50s with Julie Andrews? Anyway, it's the classic tale of like girl.
Any black people in it?
No,
I
not
probably
one.
didn't
There's
see
some Asians, but no. It's pretty old school. Maybe the remake. So Midwest girl moves to New York City, stars in her eyes. She's very excited. And, she just like wants to be, she cuts her hair off and she like wants to be a woman of New York City. And that's kind of like how I saw myself. I was like, I am a woman of the city. Hear me roar. Like, let me embrace all this culture. And I felt like I sort of had a grasp on food, but wine was like this other thing. Right. And it just seemed to me after watching, old movies and Katharine Hepburn and doing all the things that I was like, if you're going to be a woman of the world, you have to know your wine. Yeah. And so I asked Arnaud, how do I like learn about wine? Like, can you recommend me some books? And he was like, no. And I was like, okay. All right. So what should I do? And he said, well, in his cute little like Normandy French accent, he was like, come back tomorrow with answers to these questions. And it was 5 questions. And it was like, what are the first 5 gross? What are the 7 Grand Crus of Chablis? I don't know, but like, what's the most expensive dessert wine in the world? And so I came back. I remember researching. I had the only thing I could afford in New York besides rent was a membership to Equinox, and I refused to give it up. So I was like there, like riding my bike at Equinox, like researching these questions. I came back with the answers to the question. He was like, "Great, here's 5 more," and that's like literally how it started. So I went from cocktail waitress to kind of being his little protege at the club to like I don't even know how much time passed, but then he comes in and he's like, "So you start classes at the American Sommelier Association in 2 weeks." And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that. And he was like, no, you are. And I was like, no, I have like auditions. Like, I'm like doing the thing. And he was like, yeah, I don't think so. You should do this instead. And I did. And I just found myself going to auditions and going to less of them as time progressed. And it was a slow, gradual evolution. And the one thing I'll never forget is like, there is a moment when you switch careers, because I think most people don't start off in the wine business. Right. Most people start off somewhere else. Right. And so there is this moment when you go from one career to another where like you really feel like there is a change of the guard. And there's moments where I was up at night where I'm like, is it time to give up my dream? Or, is this just like a different path? And I there was like a lot of sleepless nights where I was like, I am kind of like moving away from this thing that I've been working a really long time on to try something else. And like, is this the right path? I don't know. But it just seemed at the time like, New York is the city of opportunity. And this is probably only going to happen once. I could always go back. And so I did. So I took the path. And then I felt like at some point I would circle back and get back into being in front of a camera or creating. It was really more about the creation for me. It was, it wasn't really so much about like being the star of the show. It was like creating something new, being artistic, and having that outlet. And so today, it really is a combination of those two. And thinking back to that girl who so badly wanted to be a part of this culture, to the same girl who was like, am I giving up my dream? To, this person now that's had a career sort of in both and is combining them together. I
love that. I think a lot of stuff there. Thank you. That's an incredible story. But unpacking some of that stuff. So I think a lot of people think Seth Godin has a great book called The Dip.
Yeah, I like Seth Godin.
And in that book, he talks about just that. Like, are you giving up? Like, there's points in any journey where you're down. But you got to know if it's a dip or if it's time to abandon. And actually, I think too many people. I think it's probably 50-50. I think there's a lot of people who should stop what they're doing. And then there's other people who it's just a dip and they don't push through. Yeah. So it's really cool. And then something else you said, and then you're a big marketer. I mean, you're I mean, you're a marketer. Let's just be honest. We're all marketers,
Yeah,
right?
we are in an era where everyone is you are a tech company and a marketing company.
Right. So James Altucher, he said he has this thing, the idea sex. So you had like I'm a thespian, I'm an actor, and I like to create, but I like wine, and then the best, he says, some of the best, most profitable businesses and the most fulfilling come when idea sex, you got two ideas and you can find a way to blend them together. So it really seems like you're doing that in a big way.
Oh, well, it was purely accidental, I assure you. But yes, that seems to be the intersection that we're all at today.
Yes.
Trying to find all of these different things and put them together and hope it sticks.
Yeah. I mean, so that's really cool. And so you went to your SOM classes, and then how long did you stay at the private club?
I was probably there another year and change, and then I ended up getting a job as the head sommelier for a place I had absolutely no business being a head sommelier at.
What's that?
Well, it was just a restaurant with like a pretty decent wine list. It was part of a restaurant group, but I had no like real sommelier experience. Like I literally got the job, and they were like, "Here's your wine list. Here's your restaurant. Have fun." And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I just like took some classes. Like at that point you still have like massive amounts of, especially with wine, massive amounts of insecurity.
Oh yeah.
So, I say no business, but like there were like many nights where I was like, I would be on the floor, like with a wine list, and then I'd run back to go research something. And it was like, that was my life for like a really long time, where I was like, fake it till you make it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
They probably know less than I do. So I'm just going to bet on that chance.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because when I first started in the wine business in the late 90s, like people didn't become somms. Like they didn't become master somms. You knew wine, you got a job at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And you became the somm.
You were the wine person, yeah.
Yeah, you're the wine person.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden that's changed. So now you have people like I'm a Wisset 1, a Wisset 2, and I'm like, so the fuck what, man? You haven't tasted any fucking real wines.
Yeah.
You've tasted the ones for your fucking test.
That's right.
I'm
really glad that you can blind taste.
Yeah, exactly. You blind
Australian
tasted
Shiraz.
12 wines.
Yeah.
And then a lot of those people are like, I can't get a job because one, I think you mentioned, it's actually very tough to get in this business. It is.
Yeah.
Just about everybody I know. Nowadays, it's who you know. It's like it's always been. It's like who you know can get a job.
It's always who you know.
I mean,
and it's pure luck.
and just like anything. I mean, I went to law school. Like, who got better jobs? Kids who went to Ivy League law schools, or whose friends' parents had law firms. Mm-hmm. Right? They're the ones who came out painting, get six figures. Like you see shit on TV. I'm gonna make money. No, you're not. No. Right. So there is that aspect. And then like being able to do work. I mean, like you're running in the back and like looking stuff up, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's true. Like I attribute all of this to just nothing but luck and like being at the right place at the right time. And I don't just mean in those moments. I mean, like, the home that I was born into, the mind that I lucked into, like the chances that I happened to take, like all of it is just pure dumb luck. And the fact that I've gotten the experiences that I've gotten, it has nothing to do. I mean, did I work hard? Yeah. But like, again, like I'm just lucky that I have a good work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's always fun to like go back and look at the sunny side of the journey and like, the funny parts that make you laugh now. But like the reality was like, it was a slow burn that most nights, like I left crying because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. And like, I just gave up career for this. So why? But then there were nights like, I'd leave the restaurant and I'd go to a wine shop and I could feel myself starting to gain a better grasp on wine in general. Like I could go into a wine shop and I'd be like, all right, that is a Chardonnay from Sonoma, therefore it must taste like this.
Right.
And that was sort of the moment where I was like, this kind of feels like what I wanted it to feel like. Because for me, I really only ever got into, like I didn't get into wine because I wanted to be a sommelier. I got into wine because I wanted a better understanding and appreciation of the world.
Right.
To me, it was an access point. Wine is a backdoor to everything you want to be a part of. Mm-hmm. And, place like I grew up in like a, pretty normal neighborhood, like white suburbia outside of Philadelphia, but like I didn't have access to private clubs. I didn't have access to like, crazy chateaus in France.
Right.
And to me, it was like, all right, well, if you want to like feel like you're in a fairy tale, like this seems like a pretty good way to do it. So I lucked into it and then I faked my way there and here I am today.
But
I'm the black guy, white guy experience.
Exactly. But that's so true. It is an access point, and it does open up worlds that you don't even know exist. You know what I mean? And you hit the nail right on the head. I think, I used to be a big success guy, and I still, I used to read a lot of success books, and I still do. I'm really into growing myself because I always, trying to figure out why is that person successful. Like people go to college or don't go to, and you're like, why? What makes people successful? And the most overlooked factor is just luck, like the genetic lottery.
Total genetic lottery.
Like who you were born to, where you're born, and like you said, just dumb luck, being in the right place at the right time. If I didn't go to that party at Wesleyan, I wouldn't have met that person, and I wouldn't have met John. You know what I mean? Like literally, it is just dumb luck.
No, and it's all. I mean, by the grace of God, go I. I mean, it truly is. I'm so grateful to have what I have, but also like I know that there are people who want what I have that can't get it just because they weren't afforded the same opportunities. Whether that's being born into a different socioeconomic class, whether that's they were born, a Black female and they can't get the opportunities that I got because we don't look the same. And so I fully recognize that so much of what I have is luck and the genetic lottery, as you just explained.
It's great that you like have that the humility, and like everybody who's been on the show so far has been very humble. Like,
well, that's good. It means you're doing a great job selecting guests.
Yeah, I know. So
just my
go ahead and put your shoulders off. And then so you're having the success in New York, and you're feeling confident on your feet. You said you're going to wine stores, like oh hey that's a Russian River Valley. So then how did California happen?
Well, there was a step in between, and again, this like goes back to, it was sort of luck, but it was also sort of like I kind of knew that I wanted to work at this place. So my parents were coming to visit, and I was like, let's go to dinner at this place, Rotisserie Georgette. And because I thought the two people who owned it were just like so badass. So it was Georgette Farkas, who had worked for Daniel Boulud for many, many years. And then it was also Katina Pappas of Pappas Brothers. Her family owns Pappas in Texas.
Okay.
And so they had this like new restaurant. And I was like, this is really cool. It seems really awesome. And like, I think they're just like doing the right things. So we go to dinner there, and I don't know why I like felt like I was going to get a job there, but I just did. And so we're sitting at dinner, and I'm like yakking it up with Georgette. And at the end of the dinner, she gives me her card, and she was like, hey, if you know of anyone that might be looking for a sommelier job, let me know. Like, wink, wink. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I sure will. So I leave and I email her like immediately. And I got the job. Then I was the sommelier at Rotisserie Georgette. It really was just like, I don't know if that was like, manifest destiny or like whatever you want to call it, but I just like, I set it all up and I was like, I'm doing it. So I worked at Georgette's for, I don't know, a year and a half or 2 years or something. But it was a smaller wine list, and it was a great opportunity. Jean-Luc Ledoux, who before he passed away, owned Ledoux's Wine Shop and worked for Daniel Boulud for many years. So he was sort of the guy who designed the original wine list, and then was also the person I would bounce ideas off of. So it was sort of collaborative to an extent, but I was still a one-man team, and I didn't feel like I was growing outside of the few classes that I was taking, and I felt like the best way to grow as a professional was to work with people, obviously, who are better than yourself. So I started looking around for other opportunities in the city, got a job at Gabrielle Cruther's new restaurant at the time, turned it down, and I was like, all right, well, that's like the best new restaurant opening in New York City right now. So if I'm not going to take that job, maybe I got to get out. So I started looking at jobs out in California and saw that Bouchon was hiring a wine director, applied for that position, knew a friend who knew some people out in California, and I let her know. I was like, hey, if you know of anybody that works there, let me know, just so they can put in a good word. And she was like, oh, actually, I know Scott Brenner, who used to work at Oriole. He runs press. I'll just run it by him. So anyway, so she calls a friend of his, and anyway, so we get connected, and Scott's like, screw Bouchon, I need a somm here at press. Come work for me. So I ended up, I'd only been to Napa Valley once before that. It was 9 months prior. I'd spent 2 days there. I talked to Scott on the phone. I flew out 2 weeks later. I staged for 2 nights. And on the plane ride home, I emailed him and I was like, I would love the opportunity to work with you guys. And got the job. That night I gave my notice at Georgette's. And 3 weeks later, I was living in Napa Valley. But you'll appreciate this living in New York. So the deal was, it was like mid-June, and my lease was expiring July 15th. So it was basically like spend $10,000 to find a new place to live, or pick your ass up and move across the coast.
Yeah, move to Napa Valley. Yeah, no, that's so funny.
Yeah, so that's how I got to Napa. And I didn't know. To me, it was like a stepping stone. It was like, I'm gonna work at this place. We'll see what happens. And I had no idea the enormous amount of opportunities that were going to be laid out at my feet. And working with Scott, working with Kelly, working in the epicenter of the wine. Like, I just totally ignored the fact that I was going to be in the epicenter of one of the most famous and world-class wine regions in the world. And I was going to be at the place that had the largest wine list where everybody would come to visit. So, like, it didn't even occur to me until I was on the floor and like, Robert Parker's walking through the door, and I'm like, oh, you dumbass. Like...
No,
probably good that I didn't know that, but like, at the same time, it was like, how could you not have figured that out?
Well, when you're in it, when you're in it, you're in it.
Yeah.
A superstition is not a superstition when you're in it because you believe it, right? So,
yeah.
And I totally get that. I mean, when I moved out to California way back when you were probably like in 3rd grade, before Santa Barbara was the darling of all the Somms, when it was like Ojai, San Quinan, it was about ABC, it was about Coupe still back then. I mean, the old school, Zaca Mesa, and other people were popping up. I mean, Joey Tinsley just had started when I moved out to Santa Barbara.
Wow.
But you don't realize, I mean, when you move to California, wine country, like, and you work at a restaurant, winemakers come in all the free. I mean, you meet everybody.
Yes.
Like you don't like it's like
it's like Disney World, and you see Mickey Mouse every night.
Yeah. It's like, oh yeah, it's Fred Brander, and that's Keith Nichols. I mean, like, oh, and that's Jim. I mean, they just come in and have lunch, and they bring wine, and I mean, it's just like, and then and there's all different cultures. Santa Barbara's got different culture from but Napa is Judgment of Paris. I mean, King Cabernet. I mean, it's I mean, it's just must have been banana. I mean, you're what's that famous little grocery store out in
Sunshine?
Yeah. But you just walk down the street and you're like,
it's so true.
There's true. Andy Beckstoffer, like a dude owns all. I mean, like you like.
Yes.
And it's kind of good to be naive because you don't want to be starstruck, but it also can be like I missed a lot of opportunities because I was just like blah 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 whatever. I'm drinking wine in California, so I wasn't as focused as you were, but I totally understand that when you're like taken for granted, like when someone in California in wine country says you're my wine person, like you're legit.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's a weird culture out there. Like I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. You live in a town like St. Helena, and it's tiny. It's a super small
country.
Town. It's the country. There are no commercial businesses in St. Helena by law, except for banks, because why not? But beyond that, like your grocery store is Sunshine. You've got Steve's Hardware. You've got the Cameo Cinema. Like you don't have AMC's and Ace Hardware. Like it doesn't. Well, actually, Steve's owned by Ace, but that doesn't count. But you know what I mean? Like you don't have this big school feel of living in New York City. And so when I moved there, I was like, all right, small town, whatever. But you forget who it's inhabited by. The greatest entrepreneurs of our industry live in your tiny little town. And not only are you getting to like rub elbows with them, they become your friends because who else are you going to be friends with there? Like that's your people. And then, you have situations like 2017 or even like now, and your community keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller and tighter and tighter and tighter. And that really is like what, for me, has shaped my career probably more than anything is the friends and the network. And not only that, but like, you're talking to them on an everyday basis. You're feeling this industry, you're experiencing the seasons. And so all of a sudden, all of these things that you were learning in books that you were, sitting in the classroom studying, like they're becoming very tangible for you. You feel them every single day. And then from that, I felt like I was starting to form my own opinions, not only about wines, but the people who are making them. And that started to inform my buying decisions and how I was recommending things. And like, whether we like it or not, this is a psychological industry.
Oh,
like,
totally.
You're only going to buy the wines that like from the people that you really like.
Yeah. That's what the dude I worked for in Santa Barbara, Montecito, he said, listen, people don't buy from the company; they buy from you,
Yeah.
right? So, and it becomes like you're like, oh, he's such a dick. Like they want you, like you won't buy. Like if that winemaker's a dick, you're like, oh, he's a fucking dick.
Yeah.
I'm not buying his wine. You know, it could be good. You know, and it's so true. It's so relationship driven. It's so personality driven, and that's why you have to have a good personality as well.
It does help.
You know?
I suspect.
Yeah, you know.
I only have this one, but it's gotten me pretty far.
Yeah, it's doing right by you.
Yeah.
And then you know, so you're out there, you're at press, you're rubbing shoulders with people. Talk to me about the largest collection of Napa Valley wines.
Oh, so again, like one of those things that I don't think I realized until I got in there. Like I knew that it was the world's largest, deepest collection of Napa Valley wines. I knew that. I didn't know, like, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't think about it. I just didn't. But I didn't realize until I got in there and I started selling wines. And I was like, oh, like we're selling 60s Ingle Nook. Like nobody, and that was part of Instagram too. I didn't realize that like this was unique to me. Like most people don't get to do this.
Yeah, I was like, damn. It's like, shit, they're having 74 Heights Marthas.
I genuinely, like, I mean, I started posting these things because I was like, this was also, you know, before it was like gauche to post bottles that you were serving, which I still don't think is gauche, but whatever. This was like, I just was genuinely excited. I was like, this is my job.
Right,
like,
right.
I get to open like 68 BV Georges Latour, 74 Heights Marthas. This 69 Chapelet out of fucking Magnum. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, this is bananas to me. And so it was just a genuine diary and exploration and like I'm so excited, but I also like I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like what the Instagram outlet was for me. It wasn't just tasting the wines, it was the stories and the events that were transpiring around them.
Right.
So it was like it was about the wine, but it was also about the night and who was drinking that wine.
Right.
Because it like, especially at press, like it wasn't just the 68 BV Georges Latour. It was like Robert Parker ordered that bottle. So Robert Parker is drinking the 68 Georges Latour. That was Andre Telechev's favorite wine that he ever made. Like, again, like incomprehensible. So what was it like? I mean, it was daunting. It was very, very overwhelming. So the moment I got to Napa Valley, I had only really ever worked with European focused wine lists. So like my producer knowledge was like a little bit of Coruscant. Like what do we got out here in New York? It was like Coruscant, like a little bit of like Mayacamas, Flora Springs. Like it was very limited, like very, very limited. And I was walking into not only the world's largest Napa Valley wine list, but like the people who had potentially had a hand in them.
Yeah.
So there was no bullshitting. It was, you got to know your stuff or you're going to be in a lot of trouble, because also like Scott and Kelly knew their shit. They had done all of their research. Kelly had written the freaking book. So it was like their reputation was on the line. My reputation was on the line. And I'm like, you know, in this place where like, if you say the wrong thing, like you're going to get called out and you're never going to be trusted again. So like hunker down and start learning. So it was very overwhelming because at the time Kelly's book hadn't even come out yet. So I remember one of the first nights I worked there, I tucked her away in a corner and I just started asking her questions. Like, and I was like rapidly writing things down because I was like, eventually she's going to like tell me to like shut the fuck up. And she did in a very nice way. And so finally she was like, I'm actually getting a little parched. Like, I think I need to stop. And I was like, okay, sorry. Like, we'll start. But I literally like vintage after vintage after, I was like, what was 69 like? What was 70 like? What was 71 like? And how does it differ between Mount Veeder versus the Valley Floor? And she would deep dive with me into that. So, it was an overwhelming amount to learn. I learned it as quickly as I possibly could with the best possible resources. But to this day, like I still think there's only a handful of us that have the deep knowledge that Scott, Kelly, myself, and the Somms that have worked at press. I mean, you don't get that kind of knowledge without working with that kind of wine list. And it was a privilege. I mean, truly, like I don't think, a moment like that will ever come around again, because those wines, they used to be, plentiful.
Right.
You have to remember when Scott and Kelly started that program, nobody was drinking old Napa Valley wines. Maybe they were drinking 74 Heights Marthas, probably 69 Chapelet. But nobody was drinking like, old Mount Veeders. Like, no, they're old Concretes, old Cuvées, like even like Spring Mountain. Like, I think there's so many.
I mean, that's when you start naming the names, I think because I came up like in the big cult era, but people forget. I mean, like like Spring Mountain. I mean, all these just Cuvée Son, Clos de Vent.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Frog's Leap. Like people don't like these wines, you know, Frog's Leap, estate wines, you know, and you know, what are they, like $70? Like, and if it was a new winery, it'd be like $5.70.
Yeah.
And you know, that whole .com thing kind of blew everything up, and you know, but like those wines like are like Chateau Montelena, like those are the wines that put Napa and California on the map.
Yeah.
And impeccably stored
Yes.
vintage that I like. And it's just like anything else. It's just like with French wines, just like with Burgundy and Bordeaux. Older wines they're scarce. They're fine and rare. So they're running out, right?
Yeah.
So then what do? You become a sommelier and you push natty wines because you'll never get to taste in these wines.
Oh, poor kids.
I know, poor kids. But yeah, that's and like I'm like, oh my God, you know, you just start like Diamond Creek. Oh my God, it's just like you're like, oh my, you know, with all their single vineyards and we still know about, but you know, oh my God, you must add like Crazy Ridge in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like old Zinfandel. Like people are like, what, Zinfandel can age?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's true. Like I think there were a lot of misnomers that were very quickly righted for me, just by way of tasting these old wines that were bountiful in the cellar at the time. I mean, it was
Stony Hill Chardonnay, California Chardonnay.
We had Stony Hill Riesling and Chardonnay go back to the 70s, like no problem, like full verticals, no problem, and we were just opening it on the regular, like no big deal. And so it was this blip in time where, like, you know, nobody was drinking this stuff. It was readily available because nobody was interested in it. So Scott and Kelly were like buying it by the tanker load. It was dirt cheap.
Right.
And so then, you know, it sort of got its own rhythm. Like it became a thing. And I don't know, maybe it took out, I think over the last like 5-10 years, it has started to ramp up for sure in popularity. But like, I still remember when we were getting Diamond Creeks, like 70s Diamond Creeks for like $200 a bottle.
Yeah.
Like,
and Chapelet, people, I mean, first of all, great family. Cyril's a really nice guy. I met Cyril. But
I'm
like,
a very big fan of Molly myself.
Yeah.
Yes, they're all great.
Yeah, of course you're a fan. But like Pritchard Hill, like who's his neighbors? Who moved in after them, right?
Yeah.
And like charges $1,000 a bottle.
Yep. Yeah. No, it's true. It's fun to see the evolution and like the personalities, because it all makes sense. I think once you start meeting the people, it all makes sense.
Right.
Why does Frog's Leap cost what it does? Well, go meet John Williams and Jonah Beer.
Yeah.
Mostly John.
Yeah.
Jonah, I think, would probably love to charge more, but he doesn't. But John, you know, you meet John and you're like, that makes sense. Like that registers.
Yeah.
So yeah, you meet these people and you're like, all right, well, they've been doing it for so long. And even like, you know, you meet like Chuck Wagner from Cayman and you're just like, it all makes sense. All of these brands now have a person behind them.
And once you see that,
And once you see that and you meet them, you're like, that makes sense that costs $1,000. That makes sense that it costs $70. Like it all starts to kind of come together for you. And it brings the valley together in a way that I don't think learning it from a book could have for me.
Yeah. Yeah. You can learn that. And that's the thing also. You don't learn your lesson by reading. It's good to read books.
It's great, yeah.
But
you have to have a foundation.
Yeah, you have to have a foundation because you can't be like, "What's this we drinking on?" But you have to. But you know, it's exercising the palate. It's going. It's working. It's you know, and it's like you said, it's being around the right people. You know, you said something earlier. It's like probably heard, you know, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And then like you become the 5 people you spend the most time with. So look at the 5 people you spent the most time with when you're at press, right?
The coolest.
Look at your wine knowledge right off the chain, right? And also, you know, when I moved out to California and because you said when you were in New York, it was very European centric, your wine list, you know.
Yeah, I think for most of New York, it kind of
No,
is.
it is.
Yeah.
But when I moved out to California, I was blown away by how once you meet, like when you meet, real wine people, when you get out to like wine country, like they like it all too. They got Burgundy, they got Bordeaux, they got their Rhones, like they're drinking German Rieslings, like it's pretty amazing. Like because they're studying, they're doing wine studying. How do you study? You taste wine, you know, and so they're not just drinking California wines, but I was amazed by like the amount of European wine, because that was my, I mean, when I was here, I really loved California wines, and I love California wines. I think it's I think it's the best wine growing region in the world. I love all wine. I'm sure you do too. I love Rhone. I love Spain. But California is just ridiculous.
California is awesome. I'm so glad to hear you say that because I think you're a bit of an anomaly in that way. Like when I was in New York, it wasn't cool to drink California wine.
Yeah.
It was, it was it was kind of a faux pas. Like you had a few cool ones on the list, like to show that you were worldly. But beyond that, it was like, if you don't have Jamais, get the fuck out.
Right.
And I think for me, being able to develop my own appreciation and my own opinions about this very world-class wine region was probably the thing that has shaped my career the most, and the thing I'm most grateful for, because when you're in your 20s, I think, well, I don't think it's an age specific thing. I just think in general, like you get to a point where opinions start being made for you. Mm-hmm. And if you let that settle in too long, they never really change. And so I'm fortunate, I feel like, that I took that leap when I did to be able to sort of eradicate some of the misnomers and stereotypes that had before they had solidified.
Right. No, that makes sense. It totally makes sense. So you've had like crazy amounts of success.
Well,
yes, but
thank you.
I know for my own self, like, you make it look easy. I just watched the movie The Pursuit of Happiness again. You ever seen the movie Pursuit of Happiness?
I love that movie.
Yeah, I love it too. I always cry too. I know what's going to happen. But the scene where at the end where he wins the internship and they say to him, was it as easy as it looked? He said no. So obviously, people see you and you're the sommelier and you're beautiful and you're smart and you're funny and you're creating this great content. But I remember you did a post one time, something about like sexual harassment, misogyny in the business. Yeah. Like, so tell me about what are some of tell me some of the things you had to overcome on this journey.
Yeah, I think that was that particular post happened after a pretty ugly night at press, and I think.
And this was even before me too. I remember you just went.
I think it was before me.
Yeah.
Too.
Well, oh yeah. It was
Yeah. I don't know. I think the hospitality industry, there is an ugly mark on it, not just for women, for men too, where you're sort of subservient in all aspects, and guests sort of feel entitled in a way.
Yep.
It's not all of them, but a select handful of bad apples. And I think it just got to a point where I felt like enough is enough. Like, I am serving you wine and that is it. Like, I'm not here to be someone that you can manipulate and caress and you can't touch my ass. Like, it's inappropriate. I don't care if you're buying thousands of dollars of wine. Like, it's inappropriate whether we're here or whether I'm at your house. I would never go to your house, by the way. And so, yeah, I think it was more of a reflection on the industry than I shared my personal experience because I felt like it was important to give it some context. But I also felt like it was just this plague on the industry. And I'm not sure if it ever will change. I'm hopeful that it will. But it felt to me like it was a moment where we could, at least as owners of businesses, ask for more, demand more respect. Stand up for your employees when they're being mistreated, whether that's being screamed at by a guest inappropriately or whether that's being touched inappropriately or, whatever that is. Like, as an owner, as a manager, it's your responsibility to protect these people, and there has to be repercussions. And so it felt to me like that was the time to just say, here's where I stand. It's not okay. And for anyone else in my restaurant that's feeling this way, you let me know and I will make sure that it's handled. And I have to give Samantha Rudd, who is the owner now of Press, a lot of respect, because that moment when it happened, she reached out immediately and she was like, no, this is not okay. Like, that person can be removed immediately. You have my full support. And I don't know if it was just because I had been at the restaurant for an extended amount of time or if I've been in the industry long enough that I felt like I could say something, but it meant a lot to me that she said that, but I think it also meant a lot to a lot of other women and other men at Press specifically who subsequently came up after and would have issues and they would come to me about them and say what can we do? And they were fixed and they were rectified. And so that was really meaningful to see actual progression happen in an industry that I didn't expect it to. It was just more of a State of the Union address, I suppose. But yeah, I don't know if that was a hurdle so much as just a shitty thing that happens in our industry that we needed to be aware of. Hurdles for me happen every day. you said it earlier, like you you wake up, some days are awful and some days are great. As an entrepreneur, especially now, like I have really, really dark days and I have really, really good moments. And like, it's just that constant ebb and flow of like knowing that you're going to get through it if you just keep working. Like it's not all going to be good. And I think that's the ugly side of entrepreneurship, or really like any journey, professional journey or personal journey, that it's not all sunshine and lollipops and roses. Like it's ugly sometimes and it's hard. And sometimes the calls come in, sometimes they don't. Sometimes projects work out, sometimes they don't. And like,
she thought of a very specific one there. I could just tell.
It's true, and like, I think, if there's one thing that I can say, it's, I feel like I am a lot more confident than I was before in saying no to things and knowing exactly what I want out of a partnership. Whether that's, with a winery or with a client or whatever it is, like I know what I want and I'm not willing to sacrifice. And so my hard no's are my hard no's, and they're welcome to work with me or not work with me.
Right.
And that, that may seem a little bit harsh. It's, certainly not the aggressive stand that I want to take. But I think I just got more comfortable in my ability to say no. And that has sort of weakened the lows to some extent, because it doesn't become so emotional. It's just like, this is what we're doing, this is how it works. And so those highs and lows become more, less emotional and more, I don't know what the opposite of emotional is, but it's that.
Yeah, no, I think I what I'm hearing you say is, first of all, I don't know where I read it. Like I said, I've done all this success reading. Mm-hmm. Get some more wine in that glass, by the way. Mm-hmm. That every time you say yes, you got to do like 1,000 no's, and people don't understand that. Like if you say yes, if you keep saying yes, you're never going to get anything done. You will not. No, you're worried about other people's path, and I'm not. It's not selfish to know where you want to go, who you want to work with, and how, and what's going to get you there, and so that's, bravo. And also, it's subtraction, right? Like most things get better with subtraction, not addition.
Yes.
Right? It's like most things don't need more cowbell. They actually need a little bit less, right? So, that's that
like
famous.
that.
That's that famous.
SNL's good.
Yeah.
Christopher Walken.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's that famous meme or whatever quote attributed to Michelangelo with David. Is like, I just took away everything that wasn't David, right? So you're building a masterpiece. It was about removing things, not adding things,
Mm-hmm.
right? And with wine, think about it, like a lot of the best wines are they're minimal intervention. It's made in the vineyard. All the futzing goes around in the vineyard.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah, and once the grape's the grape, then that's it.
That's it. You know, so that's really cool. Now you also, like, I was digging your stuff, but then I was like, oh my God, this chick is a badass.
Uh-oh.
You had Gary Vaynerchuk came on, like, did something live with you.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So that was back when he was launching Empathy.
Right. Which he sold for an undisclosed amount.
Yes.
To Constellation Brands.
Yeah, I'm sure they're crushing it.
I know. Talk about, which is the name of his book. See
Yes.
what she did there?
Yeah.
See what she did there? Uh-huh.
Yeah, on the fly.
That's right.
Yeah, so he was launching Empathy, and this is how it went down. So this was fun. So I'm at press. It's a Sunday night, and our AGM is in the office, and he's like, I just got this call from this guy, Gary. Literally, this is the tone.
With like 20 million followers.
This is the tone.
There's some guy, Gary.
Some guy, Gary. They want to come film. I told him no. I was like, what? What do you mean?
Gary who?
I was like, what did they want to film? He was like, I don't know, but like I said, like, we couldn't have them film in the restaurant. I was like, what Gary was it? And he was like, Gary something. I was like, Vaynerchuk? And he was like, yeah, that sounds right. And I was like, what? Why did you say that? And I was like, well, because it's unprofessional. We can't have them filming in the restaurant. I was like, we have 13 covers on tonight. This guy has a ridiculous amount of followers. They can do whatever the fuck they want. So the crew walks in the door, and it's him, it's John Troutman, Nate, and D-Rock, their camera guy. And I recognize all of them because I've watched all their content. They sit down, and I pull D-Rock aside, and I was like, hey, I know that guy over there said you can't. I'm telling you can. And do whatever you want. You want to go in the wine cellar, you want to sit at a table, whatever the fuck you want. And he was like, great, thanks so much. So
Just
anyways,
don't grab my ass.
yeah, no, that's a hard no. So they, they're super respectful. And I also seen how these guys operate. So I know that this is not going to be like keeping up with the Kardashian style,
Right. Right.
lights going up, the whole thing,
right.
like, people going crazy. So they do their thing. I serve them some wine. I end up, connecting with John and with Nate and I think with D-Rock. I'm not sure. So anyway, I connect with John and months later they're launching Empathy. And John reaches out to me and he's like, hey, we want to do this video on whatever. And he's like, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, of course. It's Gary Vaynerchuk. When do you need me there? So I fly out to New York and we were supposed to shoot with Gary that day. And they screwed up his booking. And he was in Chicago. He had to leave for Chicago that morning. And so we end up shooting all throughout New York. And then he comes out to Napa. We shoot there. But I think what happened was all of this stuff just happened in the wrong way. And so the content never got released. So I did interview Gary Vaynerchuk. I did film with VaynerMedia. Nothing ever came of it. But John and I are still friends, and I still, feel
Nothing has come of it yet.
Nothing has come of it yet. Yes, not in that way.
Right.
No, the content was never released. But of course, you can't quantify for the other things that will happen as a result of that.
Right.
So,
right. I mean, and
yeah.
I peeped it. I was like, whoa.
Yeah. No, that was super cool because that's when that's a meeting the idol moment.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, what was super cool about him, he always seems like he's going, and he is going a mile a minute. But when he sat down for that 15-minute interview, it was him, it was me. We were the only two people in the room. He was undistracted.
I came up with him, but he was so busy working. He, in the late 90s, he was taking over his family business when I was working in New York, New Jersey area. But one thing I've always heard about him is when he's with you, he's present.
So present.
He is ADD as fuck. He's just full of energy. But when he sits with you, it's very interesting because there's so many, I always think of Training Day. Denzel, he's like, this is a paper. 99% is bullshit. This is the internet. This is social media. 99% of it is bullshit.
Yeah.
But when he talks about being empathetic, he just gets you. He's you can tell in his tonality and in his mannerisms, it comes across to me. So, and I'm a pretty good reader of people. So that's really
that way.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. That is bananas. So, all right. So California knows how to party.
Sure do.
Tell me about your epic wine nights. What was your most epic wine night?
Personally?
Yeah.
Well, I think the big secret with me is I'm not actually a huge drinker.
Okay.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that was a problem when I started out. I was too much into the drinking and not into the serving. So you have to. Yeah. You have people, and me and Dustin and I talked about that. Dustin Wilson, when he was on, was like, there is the restaurant business.
Yes.
Is wild.
It is, and it will suck you in.
It'll suck you in.
Yeah.
You work, you get off at midnight. You're not going out. You ain't got to be back in till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. What do you guys got there? I don't know. Okay. you know, it can suck you in.
I think so,
yeah.
But I think, when I came out to Napa, Kelly was very quick to identify, at least with me, she said, you're going to need to have a hobby. You're going to have something outside this restaurant or you're going to lose your mind. Mm-hmm. I think she was right. And I think starting SOMMVIVANT sort of was an answer to that. And having my, I guess, people say you're 5, what's your 5 to 9? For me, it was my 9 to 5 because I worked at restaurants. So I was already in my 5 to 9. So my 9 to 5 was SOMMVIVANT. So, which meant that if I was going to be productive and create content, I couldn't be out. Not that you can in Napa Valley, because where the fuck are you going to go? Ponchos?
Right.
Nah. Not happening. And I still, not that it's a badge of honor, but I still have never been to Ponchos. I've been to Anna's once. I'm sure they're great. It's just not my jam. I don't drink to drink. I don't drink to get drunk. If I could drink wine all day and not get drunk, that would be far superior than the alternative.
Right.
So epic wine nights. So, I mean, I've had far more fun. This is so nerdy, serving wine than I probably have
No, I mean,
drinking it myself.
I can totally see that. Even though, so okay, so what wine dinner? What wines did you pull? and just the people were just blown away, and you were excited because you were like, you know what? If you really want to try something, because people might be like, I want, and I'm sure you've got some dope vintages Opus One, but you're like, you know what? You need to try this.
Well, okay, so we've had some like very baller nights with this guy that comes in fairly regularly. And he, he'll buy everything, like anything that's expensive.
Was like a .com guy from San Francisco?
It's not.
Okay.
And
I'm not asking for the name.
No.
names.
I'm trying to describe him without like totally giving it away because I think most people in Napa Valley at this point know him. He doesn't live there. He does own a winery, but he's an Ohio guy.
Okay.
Anyway, super nice. But like, spends stupid amounts on wine with us, and is, it's always very good wine. Those are really fun nights, but they're not my most memorable. The ones that are usually the most memorable are like the little, the nights where like someone will come in and like, I remember there's this guy that came in and he was like, I want like, 3 really good bottles, but I'm not really sure what to get. And one of them happened to be the 74 Heights Martha's, and his mind was fucking blown. He didn't know anything about it. I got to talk through the whole story. And so for me, that was like, that wine went to such a good home. Like someone who didn't even know that the 74 Heights Martha's was as wonderful as it was. He just happened to see this. He was like, why is this wine $2,600? And I was like, all right, we'll go through that.
Damn, I've had that wine before.
Yeah, I mean, it's
like
pretty
a
good.
few times. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So like nights like that.
I didn't buy it.
No.
Just for the record.
No, they're so expensive.
They are. But anyway, yeah. So, but I like what you said, it went to a good home, right?
Yeah, well, and that's always what you want for your children, right?
Yeah, it's not like some gauche person
Yeah.
like, give me the most expensive bottle of wine.
But I think probably one of my favorite memories was Todd Newman, who owns Dakota Shy. This was fairly early into my career. He is a lover of old Napa Valley wines, and one of the first shots he gave me at selecting a bottle for him, I kind of crushed it. And I say that because like we still talk about it, and actually that was the reason that I selected the wine that I did for SOMMVIVANT, which was the 79 Phelps Isley. So that was the very first bottle of 78 Phelps Isley that I ever served, and that was to Todd. And I still remember his reaction and my reaction. We were both in tears. It was just magical. Like you can't. Wines like that, like they have a soul. I say that in like the most objective way possible. Like there is just something unquantifiable about it, and you can't describe it other than to say like it just moves you in a way that maybe a beautiful symphony might, or I don't even know. Like I don't except for like maybe the pursuit of happiness. Like when was the last time you cried over anything, except for COVID and, maybe the election. I don't know.
So they're drinking the wine. They're totally like drinking the wine. They're swirling it. And then all of a sudden, like in their heads, just Coldplay just comes on. Tears stream
Seriously.
down your face.
Seriously, though.
When you drink something that you could not replace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and it is, it's a living, breathing thing. And, that's a special vineyard. I mean, oh God, when you say something like Phelps Easily, wow.
Yeah.
78.
Yeah, that's the vintage, man. That wine is just, it won't die. I'm quite convinced of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I know like, you think of Baller Night, you're like, we had every vintage of DRC, Screaming Eagle, Heart, but like,
exactly.
I don't know, those nights are like, they're cool. Like they have happened for sure, but like, they're just not as like,
no, they're not
exciting.
I get what you're saying. I mean, because what happens? I mean, that's why I moved out to California. We had a crazy millennial dinner. It was bananas, and but by the end of the night, like, okay, you're drinking Cheval Blanc from the bottle because you're like, we're drinking because like, it's an epic night. You know?
But I will say when we did Napa. So that was I started this thing at Press a couple years ago. That was a take on La Palais, where we had basically same celebration. All Napa Valley vintners and people who love Napa Valley wines came in, brought their own wine. And that was that kind of night, but it was different. Like it was baller and it was super cool, but that was also like another magical moment. That was probably like my favorite night ever. Both of those Napoles at Press. I don't think they're doing it again though. No. It was kind of like I don't know how to describe that, but that was a fun night and something that I'm probably a memory. Like the thing that I'm probably most proud of, like starting and doing and executing was like it wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful.
No, that's kind of
Yeah.
badass too. You're totally a creator, right? You're really a creative.
I love creating things.
And I love how you found a way to, even in wine, like you created an event, like people you created like a Sundance Film Festival or whatever. Wine, I don't know.
I always loved projects in school. That was always my thing. Like putting things together and creating. I don't know. I just love it.
So you're a talent, but you're also like a producer. Yeah.
I have discovered as of late that is maybe my next calling to some degree is like a little bit more production.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's really cool. So, all right, so you're not a big drinker, I get it. That's cool, but like what's the most what is the bottle of wine with that 78 was what was your favorite wine experience? Like you tasted one, 70 you said a 78 was really good, but like okay, let's put it this way. So you said 2004 Groth Reserve.
Yep.
Right? So
Yep.
then what was the bottle of wine though, like that got you hooked that you're like, okay, I want to study wine. So like it's probably before press. Like what was the bottle of wine like the French guy was like, you need to drink this. Like what was or I don't know, what was a bottle of wine that you're like, oh wow, wine is crazy.
I'm not evading your questions, I promise. I just didn't have an epiphany bottle.
Okay.
It was such an organic, like to me, again, it wasn't about the wine. It was about how I felt while I was drinking it and about like what it was doing.
Okay, so I can ask you. See, I went to law school. I'll rephrase. Okay, so
redirect.
I know, I'll rephrase. So, what can you describe like? So you have like this really spiritual connection to the bottle, and that's wine. Like when you watch, like my favorite Somm movie is Somm Into the Bottle with the winemakers.
Mm-hmm.
Like when people just pick up the soil and like that's like, so you have this connection. So what was a wine you were drinking when you had like this just wonderful, like my soul feels happy, I am on the right track? Can you think of one? Early on.
Early on. Okay, so the first time I ever put together a food and wine pairing,
Okay.
it was for Arnaud. He ordered scallops for lunch because I don't know why.
Because they're scallops.
Because he's French.
They're delicious.
They're delicious. So he ordered scallops for lunch. He goes, find me a wine to pair with it. I go, okay. So I grabbed the Palme d'Or champagne. It was a vintage champagne. I don't remember what vintage.
Palme d'Or is who is that?
I
know it's that weird
it's the
bottle.
weird, yeah.
It's a bottle that looks like the honeycombs. Like
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Who is that though? Why is that escaping me? It's not. No, Tattinger's company. Who is Palme d'Or?
I know. I was like, I thought it was Tattinger too.
I know it's not. It's somewhere. It's like that house. But anyway,
We're bad
this
Somm.
is so bad. We're too wine.
I just failed my
fucking
master's
experts.
sommelier exam.
I know. Holy shit. We're like, and all these Wisset ones are like, it's blah blah blah.
Yeah, no, I know.
I need a podcast.
I know.
You don't.
I could have been the wine director at Press.
You couldn't. But anyway,
you could try.
I know, right?
I don't know who it is. Who cares?
I'm looking. I can see the bottle. It's
I
just
know. I
killing
can
me
too,
right
and
now.
I'm dying right now.
So
We'll
so
circle
so you
back.
grab the Palme d'Or,
So I have the Palme d'Or, and
which, by the way, that's the award they give at a Cannes Film Festival for you people. So we're not idiots here, okay? We know what we're doing here.
that's right.
So we actually know the story behind the bottle.
That's right,
bro.
And I remember kind of how it tasted. But yeah, so I paired the scallop dish with the Palme d'Or champagne, and he was like, take a bite of the scallop, drink the champagne. And I was like, oh, that's delicious. And then he was like, hold that thought. And he was like, that's a delicious pairing. But he was like, watch this. And he decanted it. And I was like,
He decanted champagne.
He decanted champagne.
Boom. Now we got a story.
Yeah. So he decanted the champagne and he was like, now try it. And he removed just enough of the effervescence for more of the texture to come out of it and play with the scallop. And that was the first time where I was like, holy fuck, someone just threw color on my canvas. It was like I had never tasted scallops before. I had never tasted champagne before. And all of a sudden together, it was like this magical explosion in my mouth.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was the moment where I was like, this all is starting to make sense culturally, physically, emotionally, spiritually. This is starting to come together for me. And that I don't think it was specifically that wine. I don't think it was specifically that dish. It was just the moment where I was like, oh, food and wine pairing is a real thing. And that's why I'm interested.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. Nice. Very nice. Very nice. Very nice.
Oh, Nicholas Fayette.
I was going to say Fayette. I knew it was Fayette.
Ah.
I was going to say that. I knew
Nicolas.
Nikki F. It actually
Yeah.
came to me, and I was like, but I'm not going to play myself because I don't want to pay for. I don't want to pay for an edit. But I was like, that's Nikki F. That's why it's so funny because you don't. Yeah. Anyway, Nikki F.
Nikki F.
So, like, what's going on? What's next for you? Because here's something. So you, interestingly enough, you created this following. It's amazing.
Thanks.
Create incredible content.
Thanks.
And then I remember you made like an announcement, like you're leaving press.
Yep.
And this was before COVID. And now look now with COVID and restaurants, like you're looking like a freaking genius. What kind of what led to the decision to leave, and kind of like what's next?
Yes, great question. I am not a genius. I just
play one on Instagram.
I just play one on Instagram. I'm very good at it. So I obviously have been doing this for a few years now, and the goal always was to build my own following so that I could take it with me wherever I want. And that was advice that I had gotten fairly early on in my career. Even before I had gotten to press, I was talking with a casting agent, and she was like, I think Twitter and Instagram are going to be a thing. You should.
Right. Have you ever read 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Keller?
It's my favorite essay of all time. I love, yes. It is. I recommend it on every podcast. I'm always like, have you ever read Kevin Kelly's 1,000 True Fans?
I knew we were going to get, 1,000 True Fans.
It's the best. Yeah. Yes. So long tail, build your following.
Yep.
They will come with you. I built this following, and I didn't know, you have to understand, I ate shit for a really long time.
Yeah. I
understand. I know you do. So when I was at press, I was the Instagram girl, right? Like literally. They're like, oh, the Instagram girl. Like, all right, whatever. So I didn't know what I was doing. I just did it because I was like, this seems like a thing. I read the essay. I read a few other things. Instagram, other places outside the industry seemed to be taking off. Mm-hmm. And I was like, well, if it's big in the fashion world and every other sector of every other industry, perhaps this will be big here. Mm-hmm. So I took a chance on that. So I built all that up, and I didn't know what I was going to do or where it was going to go. I just knew that I needed to do it. And so when I got the job as wine director, I had fully anticipated being there for a lot longer because I thought it was going to take a lot longer. But as it turned out, after about a year and change, I was like, I actually have a lot going on outside of press right now. And I am finding myself like getting pulled away. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair to either of these situations. So I need to make a choice. And the restaurant was starting to sort of pivot in a different direction. There was a new chef there. They were doing different things. And I was like, I just don't think that this is a place that I need to be right now, especially when I have these other things happening. And like, it wasn't perfect. I didn't have a million things lined up. I wasn't I think everybody expected the announcement to be like, now I'm going to go do this. I didn't know what the fuck I was going to do. Right. I just was like, I have these other things and I think I need to see where it's going to go. And like, I think I have enough money to make this happen. But if I don't, then like, whatever, like, I'll work at Starbucks. Who cares? So I gave my notice. I also tried to time it so that they wouldn't be fucked for harvest. Mm-hmm. So I gave my notice directly after Premier Napa Valley, which meant that they would have had, at that time, it was end of February, they would have had March, April, May, June, July, August to get themselves together to get ready for harvest, which has traditionally always been the busiest season for Napa Valley and the busiest time for press. It's like, it's hell season. Like, you cannot take a day off. So I gave my notice, and then literally 2 weeks later, COVID is like a very big thing. Yep. There are press conferences, and the world needed virtual content. Everything pivoted, and I was right there, ready to go. And it was purely accidental that it worked out that way. And I'm still figuring it out. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, when I try to piece together a bio or, a little elevator pitch of who I am, I don't know. I'm at this intersection that you explained so eloquently earlier where like, I do this, I do that. They kind of come together. I sometimes make money off it. That's great. Yep. Where am I going? I don't know. I mean, I'm hosting this podcast that's coming out on a Thursday. I don't know when this podcast is being released, but by now it's probably out.
What's the name of your podcast?
So my podcast is Wine Access Unfiltered. It's very different than this one. So we talk to non-wine people. So we talk to like athletes, musicians, comedians, and it's really just an excuse for Vanessa and I to drink and talk to people that we're fans of.
Well, I mean, I was gonna call this Beats, Wines, and Life, and that might become our byline because I do a lot of music and wine pairing. So I'm not just gonna talk to wine people, but just as a black wine that came out the gate. We're actually I want to, this is, I love that you're doing that because this isn't going to just be restricted to wine people because I could. I mean, like I on my little small email list that I've started because it's a shit ton of winemakers, and they actually read the emails. It's really cool.
Isn't it fun?
It's so much fun.
Well, good for you. That's awesome.
And like they want to come in. They were like, oh, I want to be on your podcast, but we actually, my producer and I, Necessary Media, we really like this like kind of format, and so we like to have people here. Like if a fucking second wave goes off like it's starting, then we're gonna have to pivot and.
That's what it's all about,
remote
right?
shit. Yeah, listen, I'm an athlete. You got to pivot, you got to cut back, you got to slash. But yeah,
I'm the opposite of an athlete.
What's
I'm like the least athletic person. I was a dancer, and that was like, so I'm like
athletic.
athletic.
Wait, no, that's my cousin is a dancer. That's like athletic as hell.
It is very athletic, but it is not an athlete, and like I cannot play a team sport or move a racket in the right direction.
Yeah, but I mean, I get what you're saying. But,
anyway,
totally. So and people like and you guys like, I know like Vanessa Conlon, who's a master of wine, because for the non-wine people, because we're not just having wine people, for you non-wine people.
Yeah.
I mean, I know she interviewed like Carmelo way back when, and so like, who are some of the can you give us a taste like who's coming on, like who you guys hung out and she drank wine with and you kind of like sip wine with.
Yeah, we both gently sip. Although there have been a few bottles that like we've probably drank too much of throughout the course, but that's okay. We've had let's see, the first 3 episodes will be Carly Pierce, who's a country music artist.
Oh wow.
Brad Williams, who is a comedian with a couple like Netflix and Amazon specials, and
we're working on it. We got some comedians we're working on.
Nice. I love comedy so much.
So do I. I think I'm funny.
I think I'm funny too.
You're pretty funny, but we're not like
we're
like funnier than most people, but like you're not comedian funny.
No,
that shit is brutal.
It is brutal.
People don't realize, man.
Yeah. And then Tiki Barber, we're leading.
Tiki Barber
loves wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, damn it. He's pretty good looking. I'm good looking. He's pretty.
He's handsome, and there's 2 of him because he has a twin.
I know. What's his brother's name?
I don't know.
He played. Well, his brother actually played for Tampa Bay.
Yeah, Tampa.
And he won the Super Bowl. He picked off. He had a pick off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but Tiki Barber was a giant guy. But anyway, yeah.
Tiki was cool. Nomar Garcia Parra, who
Nomar.
Yeah.
He's married to an athlete, right?
Mia Hamm.
That's right, man.
You know your shit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we've got some cool people on the podcast. And
that's cool.
Yeah. I think the podcasting thing is cool. I had wanted to start a podcast for a long time, and I just didn't. I just didn't.
Yeah, me too. I'd been threatening to do it for like 5 years.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I was on someone else's podcast this spring, and then my producer saw me, and she's like, hey, I think you could use some help. I'm like, yeah, I guess I could, because you said you're going to start a podcast, because otherwise I would not be here. I wouldn't be here. I'd be like.
Well, what's cool is there's room. And I think for a long time, I won't call him out, but I know that there was a particular podcaster in this wine space that was like, there can only be one wine podcast. It's not true. There can be many.
Oh, yeah.
And they can all be great. And we're all different.
Right. We're all different. And
you're so great at what you do. And your content is wonderful. And I'm so happy that you have enjoyed the success that you've enjoyed. And I think it only goes up from here.
Yeah,
so I'm excited to
I really
see
appreciate that.
what episodes 1 through 4 and 6 through whatever look like.
Oh, yeah. It's probably going to get crazy.
Yeah?
Yeah. I'm crazy.
You seem normal. I don't know what happens after the podcast, but you seem normal now.
I am normal. I hold it together, but I'm crazy.
When does it get crazy for you? At what point?
I don't know.
Is it 3 bottles, 2 bottles, tequila?
I don't drink hard liquor.
No.
Learned that lesson when I was younger. I do not drink hard liquor
So it's
anymore.
just the juice.
Yeah, it's just the juice. And I do enjoy a beer.
Okay.
But no, when I say crazy, like this has been a really fun episode. You guys are all great. This has been really fun because there's a lot of witty banter going back and forth, But sometimes it's like I will go as far as the guests will go.
Yeah.
But I just realized sometimes I'm like, damn, some of the shit I grew up listening to and the shit I used to say is not PC. And I'm like, make sure that doesn't fly out my mouth. You know what I mean? Because I'm not that guy. But it's generationally we talk totally. So
I can't say the things my mom said.
Right. I mean, I've watched Eddie Murphy's special on. He was on something. He was like, when you look at like Raw and Delirious, and like he's like, yeah, man, I couldn't say that nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's just that's all I'm saying. Like, but no, I really appreciate what you said, and I'm just thank you for coming. Like, so where can people find out more of Amanda? Where can they find more of Amanda McCrossin? Give people where they can find you.
Yeah, they can find me on the gram. They can find me on YouTube. They can find me, I think we're on all of the podcast platforms with Wine Access Unfiltered.
And what's your handle again?
Oh, thank you. I'm at SOMMVIVANT, so SOMMVIVANT. And yeah, I'm very present in the DMs, as we've learned.
Yeah.
So I love talking to people in there. It's not like a post and like see you never. I really love the conversations that I have.
Yeah.
And I've gotten to know like the best
Well,
people.
that's
It's
what
so
people
awesome.
like Gary Vee said, like dip into send someone a DM, and
It
like
literally
like
happens in the DMs.
it really does. Like everyone who's come on the show owes a DM.
Yes.
You know, and they're like, yeah, dude, I'll come on your show.
I hired a sommelier from the DMs. Taylor Bolton Harvey was literally, he saw something that I posted and he was like, how good was that wine? I was like, it was delicious. He was like, by the way, are you hiring? And I was like, actually I am. We still talk about, but it's so cool. Like, to me, this is the world we live in now, and to not embrace it and capitalize on it, like, you're just doing yourself a disservice.
Yeah.
It's all free. Instagram's free.
Yeah.
For the most part, unless, the algorithm gets you, but.
Well, yeah,
you know.
exactly. They got me. I was getting a lot of mail. Like, oh, they adjusted me. They're like, But hey, listen, if you're not one of the 23,000 people following at SOMMVIVANT,
there's a lot of people on the planet there's more people on the planet who don't follow me than do.
I know,
so.
but you should be. Amanda McCrossin, thank you so much. God, listen, you're a friend of the show. We're gonna have you back for sure.
Good. I would love to come back and get a little wittier and maybe crazier. And
yeah, we'll do something different. We'll warm up. We'll have a warm up bottle, and then like.
You'll make me say make me say cunt 3 times.
Yeah,
and then,
exactly.
okay.
Like I think Tim Ferriss does like drunk shows. We'll have like a really tipsy show. All right, guys. This is MJ, the Black Wine Guy. Until the next time, cheers to the Mavericks, the philosophers, the deep thinkers, and the wine drinkers. We'll catch you later. Another episode of Black Wine Guy podcast. Remember, if you want to be on the insiders list, go to blackwineguy.com, and I will see you on the gram at Black Wine Guy. Peace.